on the News Channel 5 network. This is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, welcome to OpenLine. I'm glad you are with us tonight. There's certainly a lot going on in the world. There is a lot going on. Here in Nashville, in Middle Tennessee, we've dealt with the tornado. Now there's the coronavirus that we're all talking about, and it's certainly impacting so many things. We almost feel like it'll be good to just talk about something we've talked about for a lot in the past. We've scheduled elder law, and I'm really happy we can talk about something like that. This is a chance for you to call in, talk with an elder law attorney. You've seen the show before, and I'm glad we're doing it again tonight. We have with us Barbara Boone McGinnis. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
In the midst of all that's going on with the coronavirus and everything, I guess first I'll ask how some of those things relate to elder law, but define elder law again.
Great. So elder law is a unique niche of law that is indeed a specialty practice. We devote some time, of course, to the basics of estate planning, but it's also encompassing all of the issues that relate specifically to older adults, folks with chronic illness or disability, and the government benefits that impact them. So I think it's a fascinating branch of law.
And this is a chance, so maybe you're taking care of an aging loved one, or you yourself are aging, a chance to call in and get some questions answered. Now, as it relates to what's happening in the world today, coronavirus and elder law, how do those two intersect?
Well, I've been thinking actually a lot. I've spent a lot of time today thinking about that. And one of the things that has come up related to this coronavirus scare, and that facilities are trying to be very proactive. So it's very common now for long-term care facilities, nursing homes, and assisted living facilities to have restricted visitation. And that's happening all over the country and here in our local community as well. So if you have a loved one in one of those facilities, you'll notice that no visitors, or only in the case of an emergency. Some exceptions usually for hospice, end-of-life situations. Just, I'd say at this point in time, it's probably wise to err on the side of prudence, right? I mean, they're trying to be protective of their residents that we know are the folks that are most vulnerable in this coronavirus epidemic.
Because we've seen in Washington State, I think the majority of the deaths have come from people that were in a nursing home.
That's right.
A long-term care.
Right.
That's the majority of the deaths. So it is understandable they would want to take these precautions.
It is understandable. Of course, some chatter and dialogue among the elder law community that it's a possible infringement on resident rights if they're not currently sick. There's not currently a virus in that facility community that perhaps this impairs or infringes on their rights as a resident to restrict visitation, because that is one of the protected rights. They're entitled to have visitors. Again, at this point in time, I think it's reasonable to err on the side of caution and prevention. Let's see how long this lasts. I mean, it can't last 6 months, that kind of thing, and still be reasonable. We got to come up with a strategy.
Because visits are very important. They help.
It's very important, and it's important to stay in touch with those folks. If you have a loved one that's in a long-term care facility, stay in touch on the phone. If you can do FaceTime or something like that, do that. And in fact, to the facilities, I would encourage facilities to maybe incorporate assisted communication in part of their activities or in part of their daily care routines, making sure those calls are being made. Everybody, they're not great technology people, so maybe helping them with FaceTime or Skype might be just a way that they can incorporate some socialization but still be preventive.
And you said you were going to go to a conference out in Seattle, right? Or was it somewhere like that? There was an elder law conference?
We actually just got back from a conference in San Diego that went perfectly. No trouble with that whatsoever. But I did hear today that the governor in Washington State has had some restrictions on events with more than 250 people in attendance canceled in that county that houses Seattle. So that will cancel the NALA, the National Association of Elder Law Attorney Conference there.
Very interesting. And then the other big thing, of course, has been the tornado. Tornado impacting Nashville, impacting much of Middle Tennessee. What elder issues may come out of that? Now, I don't know if you're seeing some of these things in your practice, but what are some things that people might be experiencing that might be unique to that population?
Well, as far as something that readily could happen, right, would be houses are destroyed, so important documents can be lost. We can talk about how do you prevent and protect important documents, and I guess we should. If a document is actually lost, and I'm talking about your estate planning documents, powers of attorney, wills, things that were drafted in an attorney's office, there are probably copies of those that can be recreated. If the principal or the person that the documents relate to no longer have capacity to recreate documents, then there's a process for certification or an affidavit, an attestation of still the fact that they're still valid documents. So if one of the things you lost in your home during the tornado were those types of estate planning documents, know that there is a mechanism for that to be recreated. Go back to the attorney that drafted them for those copies and to have them updated.
And then, okay, so now we'll get back on the more defined sort of focus of elder law. And I guess what are some of the things you see coming through your door this time of year? I mean, when you or Tim Takacs comes on, I always ask, what are you seeing this time of year? It's maybe something's a little different right after the holidays. And is there something that's kind of indicative of this time of year? Or that you've just seen recently coming through your door?
Right. It's a lot of the same things in that people come year-round with worries about chronic care. How are they going to get good care? Where are they going to find good care? And then certainly, how is good care going to be paid for? Do they use their own resources, meaning their own savings, their income, the equity in their home to pay for care? If they've passed that into actually that active phase of needing care, or do they turn to government benefits? How do you utilize government benefits? And a lot of times it's really pretty nice, like talking with families and helping them understand how those benefits, they become eligible for them, and how we can use them. And so people find that sometimes it's not as scary as they thought it was going to be.
When we start talking about cost, what is the cost?
It took a pretty dramatic jump this year. I'm pretty certain that now we're at least an average of about $8,000 a month for a nursing home. And that I'm sure you can find outliers where it's less than that, but pretty much in our Middle Tennessee area, you're going to find about $8,000 a month. And for assisted living, probably $5,000-ish, $5,000 a month for assisted living. You can find it for less, you can find it for more, but.
And so that's a lot. How do people pay for that? I mean, that's a difficult thing.
That is a difficult thing.
And that's what you're helping people work through.
It is. And so sometimes it's just a difficult thing to get people to accept the fact that they need that level of care, that because everybody wants to stay in their home, or a lot of people want to stay in their home as long as possible, and they think bringing in care providers in their home is going to be the answer. It's certainly a step that can help push it out for how long when we're going to need institutionalization, right? But sometimes they've got some really just bad images in their head, and not visiting current facilities and seeing what's going on now. Assisted livings are quite beautiful in our area. The focus being on routine care, supportive or supervised living, where they're not having to do housekeeping, not having to worry about yard maintenance, not worrying about grocery shopping. Meals are provided. So laundry being done for them. So a lot of things that make life easier for them, that supportive care. And then the routine of socialization, food, and medication administration can sometimes seem to stabilize chronic health situations. So, after you can actually convince somebody to look into it and see how this could possibly make their life easier, then we start talking about how do we actually pay for it. Now, everyone has some income. Unfortunately, a lot of seniors usually only have Social Security income, and that income is probably going to be $2,000 or less. That's a drop in the bucket compared to what we were talking about, these average costs per month. So then it's, how do we use our savings? How do we use our own money? Do we sell the house? Is it necessary to sell a house to pay for this care? Or can we use other benefits? Is there a veterans benefit that you're eligible for? Perhaps a non-service connected pension where the disability is related to advanced age and chronic condition. That is also a means-tested program, and that we have to prove to the VA that there is a need for financial support.
What is the biggest, I guess, mistake you feel like people make? I want to ask that. And then, who is your biggest client? Is it more someone who's coming in worried about a parent or an aging loved one, or is it the aging person themselves?
The biggest mistake I see, there's really like a couple of really big mistakes that people make. One is just failing to plan, just being in denial, saying this is not going to happen to me, I'll deal with it when it happens. And then you find that some of your options are very limited. So planning ahead, starting when you're probably assuming that you're a relatively healthy older adult, starting in your late 60s or early 70s to plan ahead, you're going to see more options at that point in time. Options that include even the possibility of obtaining long-term care insurance. So maybe some asset protection planning at that point in time as well. Another big mistake that folks make is giving away the home to children.
Right.
And I understand that's where they want their home to eventually go. That they want, one day they want their kids to own their house as part of their inheritance. But premature gifts can cause some problems for folks.
And why? Why is that?
Well, one thing could be that you think about tax basis in the house, depending if you had bought the house for $60,000 and now it's worth $300,000 because the price of real estate's crazy in our area. The fact that you've given away that $60,000 tax basis and now your kids are going to pay one day the capital gains on all of this. That's an issue. That's a issue that's down the road, but it's a real issue. Sometimes bad things happen to kids too. And you don't want your kid's illness or lawsuit or divorce to get to have your assets tangled up in them. There are ways to protect them from that. It kind of comes down to, it may not be necessary to do that to obtain your objective. If you're just trying to protect it from the cost of nursing home or the cost of long-term care, it may not. It's not a necessary strategy.
Because people are worried, they've heard about this look back, right? TennCare goes and does a look back, and they're worried that the TennCare would come for the house.
So the look back has to do with the application phase. There's a 5-year or 60-month look back when you apply for TennCare benefits to see what you've done with your assets. Have you given away large assets like your house, or like large chunks of money? Have you given that away? Because obviously if you have given away large amounts of assets in the attempt to become Medicaid eligible, the government's not happy about that, because you could have used that money to pay for your care. So that's the look back. The clawback or the estate recovery part happens after death of the applicant, death of the spouse of the applicant. So when a house is sold at that point in time, that's the potential for estate recovery. And that's what I really think people are, maybe because folks don't understand how look back and clawback and all those things work, or what the rules are for asset preservation, how they can be used, that people give away their house prematurely.
Very interesting. And then the other question I had before we go to break here is, who is the typical client, or is it 50-50?
The typical client, now for us, we are always in the posture of protecting the elder, so we always consider the elder as our client. A lot of times it is the spouse of a sick person that's coming in looking for, because their worry is sort of double. They're worried about how their spouse is going to be taken care of. They want them to get good care. They're worried they're not going to get good care in a nursing home. And then they're also worried about themselves becoming impoverished in the pursuit of getting good care. So they have this dual worry, and those are the folks that we love to help. A lot of times kids are tasked with taking care of their parents, and they're coming in trying to make difficult decisions to take care of their parents. But in those instances, it's the parent that would be the client that we're helping the child take care of.
A lot of times there are kids that are trying to take care of aging parents. If you are in that situation, you have a question along those lines, I encourage you to give us a call. This kind of sets the table for the discussion. Anything you want to call in about along these lines, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.